Hello, friends. Welcome back to our Won't You Be Our Neighbor series. Today we have with us Maggie Daly Skogsbakken, and we're really excited to dig into conversation with her. But before we do, I want to just remind you what we're up to. So at Friendship Community Place and Friendship Presbyterian Church, we are embarking on this series, Won't You Be My Neighbor, for a couple of reasons. One, we're really excited to launch our new space at Friendship Community Place at 5150 Northwest Highway when the building is complete. And we know that one of the things that we really want to do there is it be an integrated partner in the neighborhood. And we know that if we're going to be a good neighbor and a good partner, then we need to deepen our relationships with our neighbors, learn more about our community and the neighborhood, and continue to invite people into collaboration with us. And so we have embarked on this series. We've spent some time digging into conversations around the need for affordable and accessible housing, our commitments to an inclusive neighborhood that celebrates diversity and that makes space for difference and for people who want to come and live and make a life together in the community. And today we're going to turn our attention to how do we support and engage in the civic and business life of our community? What are the real needs, particularly in this pandemic time, and how can we deepen our relationships and maybe think about how could we collaborate so that everyone can flourish together. Today with us in that conversation is Maggie Daly Skogsbakken, and I want to just turn it over to you, Maggie. And again, in the spirit of Mr. Rogers, tell us about yourself. What makes you you, and the things that you're passionate about. What are some of the things you've been putting your effort and expertise into? I know in particularly your leadership with Jefferson Park Forward, but that's not all that you're up to. So tell us a little bit about you.
So yeah, hi, I'm really glad to be here. I'm born and raised on the Northwest side. I grew up in Portage Park. One of my favorite places in the neighborhood is the front chair and the front window percolator, because I can actually see my bedroom window from when I grew up. My bedroom window faced Irving Park Road, and that noise was kind of the soundtrack of my childhood. And I left for college, went to U of I, came back, went to Columbia, lived in a few places in the city. And when we were house hunting, we found a bungalow in Jefferson Park that, was very much like my aunt's bungalow that we spent every holiday at. And I always wanted that. We grew up in an apartment. My parents made a lot of sacrifices I was a late in life child, right? So they went back to work and sent me to private school to make sure I had a great education. And I appreciate that the renters, the availability of rental units in this community is why we were here and why we were able to stay here. It was affordable for them. What makes me unique or what those things? I mean, it's the same thing that makes everyone unique, right? Like your lived experiences, your perspectives. So one of the things I think that makes me a little unique is my ability to make and build relationships. And I come to the table with my perspectives, but I'm always open to expanding that. And I think that has helped me continue learning, and to build some, alliances in this community that may not have existed before, and to build some partnerships with, businesses, other orgs, and other neighbors, that really can help, not to be cheesy and reference my neighborhood group, but to keep Jefferson Park moving forward, and to building better things for all of us.
Yeah, I'm glad you did make that reference, because that's where I want to go next, because one of the things that you're describing about building networks of relationships is what I understand is very much at the heart of the Jefferson Park Forward organization. And so I think we've got folks who probably know a lot about Jefferson Park Forward, and folks who it might be a new organization to them. So say a little bit about Jefferson Park Forward, how it got started, and what are some of the key ways that you create networks of connection.
So Jefferson Park Forward is about 5 years old. It came together, before I was involved. There was a group of neighbors who just had a different outlook on what would help our community, and what might make our neighborhood a little bit more inclusive. There was a lot of work put into starting this organization, and there's a lot of enthusiasm behind it. When I came in about 4 years ago, what drew me were just the opportunities to connect, right? Like Jefferson Park Forward prioritizes creating opportunities for neighbors to meet, for neighbors to volunteer, for neighbors to learn more about their government, their elected officials, the programs that are available to them, to support the parks, to support the libraries, and to support local businesses. And that's been a huge challenge this year. And I got to give kudos to a lot of the people that I've seen online. Like, people went out of their way to make sure that at least some of our local businesses who were open were supported throughout. And that was a bit inspiring to me.
Yeah, thank you. With your involvement and really in conversation with some of our local businesses, I would love us to dig into a little bit. One of the questions we've been asking ourselves and some of our partners is around in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and particularly in this season, both in light of the pandemic, and we also know in light of increasing call for equity and the support of Black Lives Matter, that we want to pay attention to where in our communities there's a sense of hurting. And I wonder whether you've had some conversations or experiences with local business owners, local workers, like how in Jefferson Park and Portage Park and some of our Northwest Side communities, do you see where the hurt is and where maybe we have some opportunity to take care of one another or to think collaboratively in this season?
I think for residents, the hurt is not enough hours and not enough, dollars to put back into the community. And I think for our businesses, it's just been staying afloat, right? A lot of them, including Gale Street and Weston's and others, like embrace the arts, right? And bring it in. But if they can't keep the doors open, they can't be that support network for those community artists. And we just had Jeff Fest and we had the community stage, which embraced all of that. And this year, like, we were lucky enough, we were nervous because we know businesses have had a hard year, and they all stepped up to sponsor that stage so we could make sure the artists got paid. And so while there's a lot of hurt going on, what I've seen, especially in the last few months, is resilience, and the ability to bounce back, for lack of a better word, just that staying power. So where I think the hurt comes in is the lack of customers, right? The lack of foot traffic for a lot of them. And the dirty word in our neighborhood is density, right? But the lack of density, especially around one of the biggest transit centers in the city, is problematic. And at least in my opinion. And just full disclosure, I work for public transportation. So I'm a full supporter of transit-oriented development. And I see the power and the opportunity that transit can bring. And so I'm really hopeful that we as a community can move forward and embrace that we have a huge hub of opportunity in the center of our neighborhood and build from there. Like, no one's talking about, 16 stories in the middle of Meade Avenue. It's putting it in places where it actually gives people the ability to function in this city without maybe all the resources that a lot of us have, like cars or, we don't all have, colleges right next door. People need to go downtown or here or there. So all these pain points, I think, are countered by opportunity. And that makes me hopeful.
Yeah. It makes me think about how in our work to bring affordable housing to the neighborhood, one of the things that we learned is how large of a population is commuting into the Northwest Side from our neighborhoods in Portage Park and Jefferson Park all the way out to O'Hare. And that for so many people, it's an hours and hours and hours long commute. And it makes me think about the sort of ecosystem of our community. And when people who work in our community can't afford to live where they work, they also can't contribute to the local economy, right, where they work,
Yeah.
because they're spending 3, 4, 5 hours a day commuting to other neighborhoods. And so one of the things that I know has been part of our work and conversation is not to simply think about density as a needed like element in terms of the local economy, but also how not having opportunities for people to live where they work decreases like the ways that they can contribute into this sort of local ecosystem that we have. And I know that Jefferson Park Forward has a lot of expertise in its midst and has done a lot of thinking about community development and how community flourishes. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about how you think about it in the balance of like promoting growth and economic growth, but also wanting to pay attention to keeping the community accessible to a variety of economic price points, I guess, for lack of a better term. Can you talk a little bit about how Jefferson Park, or for you, how you think about that balance and how you see that, how some paths forward in communities like ours?
Yeah, I think that, access to employment, access to education, access to just culture and the arts and everything our community has to offer comes in a lot of different forms. And that's, not having to have a 2-hour commute. Mm-hmm. That comes from knowing your neighbors and, that in and of itself, and people being out and knowing the people around them makes everyone more safe in a lot of ways. But like, again, I draw from my experience, right? So working in public transportation, one of the things we realize is people like, even in Plainfield, they don't have a lot of as many job opportunities as they have people. So a lot of people go into the city and they were driving, and on I-55, that could be a 2-hour one-way trip, So we noticed once we put public transportation on there, they got to use the shoulder, right? And decreased the trip time and the reliability and gave people this opportunity. The first time in my entire career, which is a little longer than I'm comfortable sharing, we saw a 700% increase in ridership on these services. Mm-hmm. So there's the proof out there, right? That access to various things and good public transportation helps people. But at the same time, it's still an hour and a half commute. And I think what we've learned over the pandemic is that, that commute time back in your life gives you the opportunity to do other things, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of those things for me are in my community. It's given me hours back. It's given me hours back to volunteer, to organize, to spend with my family, to clean up my yard, to go clean up the bridge, and just enjoy my neighbors and my neighborhood. So I think that in our community, if we can increase that accessibility along with general accessibility, because that's a passion of mine too, is making sure that people with disabilities have the same access to everything that able-bodied people might have access to, and that includes housing that is more convenient and closer to transit.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that reminder of like how all those pieces work together, right? Like education, transportation, housing, and that in our own communities, I love the language that you've been using of hub, and that there's this opportunity to both identify where there's some hurt and also to see it as a possibility for connecting or for healing. One of the ways that I know you've been involved in trying to meet some deep needs and collaborating across business owners, community leaders, community caregivers is with this emerging group that we've been part of called the Working Group on Homelessness in Jefferson Park. And I wonder how those things feel connected to you and how we're seeing how you're seeing some collaborative efforts begin to come to fruition to try to meet the needs of that group.
Yeah, this group amazes me. Like it's a lot of people who don't have, the lived experience of experiencing homelessness or even housing insecurity. It's a lot of people who care about our community. And I think Hub leads back to the best word where I think this group is doing is trying to bring everyone to the table and learn about the resources and the opportunities for our neighbors who aren't housed. Because if we're going to do and I think I've said this before, like if we're going to talk the talk about being good neighbors, that includes walking the walk and being considerate of all of our neighbors, including, those who don't have a bungalow next door to me, or those who don't have any home. And I think the working group, what it's for me, one of the bright points of it is everyone's willingness to learn and everyone's willingness to lean in, right? Like, and it's a lot of the same people at the table that are doing a lot of the other volunteer and community improvement efforts. And, of course, we're all like, oof, another meeting or this or that, but everyone still shows up. Everyone still leans in because we saw a need. And it's not just a need for, a bathroom, a dignified place to use the bathroom, which is kind of what brought us together. Like, why don't we have this for people? Everyone goes to the bathroom, but then it's, people need food. People need warmth. People need all these things. And we just continue to learn, and we realized we didn't know all that the city had to offer, all of the other groups that were, putting in lots of hours and lots of resources to get out there. And I think that what we're doing best is bringing those experts into our community to help all of our neighbors. And I hope that eventually as this group goes on, that's what we are more than anything. We might not be the person always handing out a sandwich or a bottle of water, but we're the people that can tell you where to go to get that if we can't get it to you right away. We're the people that can tell you how to get on the path to housing. We're the people that, will bring you blankets if you're cold. We can't, I shouldn't say can't. It's unlikely that we will be all things to all people, but we can certainly make the effort, right? And we can certainly put in, the compassion and the empathy that we need to do that. For me, I've had some housing insecurity when I was younger, but not with my family. But after I went to college and tried making it on my own and realized that waiting tables didn't really cut Chicago rent. So my father, after World War II, like I said, I was a late in life child. He came back from World War II and had a lot of trauma, and he was homeless for a very long time, on and off. He lived on Lower Wacker Drive. He suffered from alcoholism, and it took someone continually being kind to him and reminding him that opportunity existed to get better. And he did, and he met my mom, and I'm here, and he sponsored a lot of people, and he wouldn't have been able to do any of that unless someone kept giving him that opportunity and kept being a stable and consistent source of help, or at least a friendly face, a smile, an acknowledgement of his humanity. And I hope that that's something the working group can do too, is help educate and convince our other neighbors that, sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating. Sometimes it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but if we can all recognize the humanity and at least acknowledge that our neighbors exist, like that's a starting point. And I've seen a lot more of that. I've seen a lot more people open to learning the causes of homelessness, like who are the people that are sitting there as they walk to the train, and I hope to continue that. And I think that's really helpful, because once someone has a name or a face, it makes it a lot harder to dismiss and ignore that.
Yeah. There's a few threads I want to pick up on, and thank you for sharing your story in a way that helps us really understand the depth and breadth, right? And I think what we're hearing again and again is we're engaging questions of how do we bring a sense of healing to the places where we're hurting in our communities. How do we do some long-term repair work in our relationships in our communities? And how do we think about transformation as a long haul project, right? That we aren't going to see some of the things that we all hope for just happen overnight. We know it's going to be a time. It's a thing that takes some time, right? From a relationship that moves someone towards more secure housing, on an individual basis to a changing perspective in a whole community, right? Like both those things take some time. And so I hear the wisdom in that you're bringing, and then also this piece around human dignity, right? And is our starting place one of like seeing one another's humanity and beginning with like that understanding of if something is as what feels so simple to many of us is having a place to use the bathroom, that's a source of human dignity that many of us take for granted, but that some of us in our neighborhood and some of our neighbors' lived experiences to not have that very simple dignified opportunity on a daily basis. And so how do we help create and support and collaborate together? And I've seen this group think really creatively and really outside the box too. So bringing not only their passion and their energy, but also their willingness to think in creative ways and to imagine new ways of supporting one another in the neighborhood. And the other piece I want to pick up on is this collaborative effort, right? That it's not that this working group or Jefferson Park Board itself or any single organization can do the kind of work that we want to see happen by ourselves. And I love hearing you say that because it resonates so much with the vision that we have for our space at 5150, is that we really hope that it's a hub, a catalyst, a space where collaboration can happen, where we might experience or begin to understand that there's a need in the community. And it's not that we think we're going to have the capacity to create something for every need, but that we will be part of the network and we can say like, oh, you really should talk to these folks over here. They've already started doing this work in a really meaningful way in the neighborhood. So we're going to connect you to Jefferson Park Forward, or we're going to connect you to this local business that's doing really important work in highlighting artists, or we're going to bring a group in to help teach us all something more about what it means to do. We've talked in a previous interview about trauma-informed care, right? What does it mean to identify and begin with human dignity? Or maybe we need to learn something about conflict, and we're going to do that as a community. And can we host that conversation in our space, right? And so I just love to hear other folks in the neighborhood already thinking about what does it mean to bring all of our resources to bear on an issue or on something that we know needs our attention in a collaborative way. And so I really appreciate seeing that in the life of this working group and also in your story.
Yeah, I mean, and you hit on a good word for there, the network of people in this community. And I think I've become a part of that network by saying yes, you know, and then there's a lot of, we have to say no, work-life balance, and that's absolutely true. But sometimes you just have to say yes more than you want, there's a group in the neighborhood of Buy Nothing, Jefferson Park. And one of the admins was leaving, and then they put a call out, like, can anyone be an admin? And I said yes. And that was probably one of the starts of me getting more involved and putting more of the hours in to be a part of the community. And then from there, because that page can't have anything to do with money. That's the whole point of it, right? It's gifting. And it's more about meeting your neighbors than emptying out your garage. That's kind of the point of it. But a couple of Christmases ago, we started realizing, we had some families that maybe weren't going to have a good Christmas or a good holiday. And so we started a little side group, and it's a little secret side, BNJP helpers. And I had people, giving me boxes of brand new toys and coming over and handing me hundreds of dollars because they were like, yeah, you should give the kids presents, but mama needs a gift too. Give her this, please. And it was just people that maybe I had seen online and didn't have the most positive impression of, that really stepped up to the table. So it was nice to have this unique group working together, just to make sure our neighbors had something. And then that led into, and then I got, started working more with JPF. And then, through that, I met people at the Jefferson Park Chamber of Commerce, the Jefferson Memorial Park Advisory Council, and the Gladstone Park Advisory Council, and Lasagna Love, and all these other things, and the Portage Park Mutual Aid, and all these people that kind of had the same perspective of like, let's, use our resources to make our community better. And we all chat. And, like Jefferson Memorial Park, like the park soup there, Andrea Wapple, like, and a couple other people almost all at the same time brought up a love fridge. And, you know, we were able to make these connections between 3 or 4 different groups who all had the same idea. And now it's happening, you know, and, you know, that might not have happened unless, you know, we had this network of people who all talk to each other and all know, at least to a point, what we all have to offer and what we're willing to do. You know, and I think that like the word networking is more than just business networking. It's it helps our community be better and to leverage all the resources we have. Yeah.
I love that. And you really answered my final question around what are the things that are giving us hope and where do we see possibility? And I just would love to close with just a little description, because I'm really excited about the Love Fridge and I'm not sure everybody knows what that is. And so here's an opportunity to like get people in on it. So tell us a little bit more about the Love Fridge and why it is such a sign and symbol of this kind of network of love and care that we're talking about.
Yeah, so it's I believe a national organization, and what it is basically a fridge with a shelter to keep it safe that community members keep stocked with resources, the perishables that people can't necessarily get at the box over by Olive's Garden for the Hungry, which is another group I want to mention. Like, there's people over there that are constantly stocking that little the resource. I can't remember the name of it if they have one, but like they have a box that everyone can come and get non-perishables. You know, and then we have the Portage Park Treasure Box, which has more of the non-food needs for people. Well, this will give people actual, you know, perishable foods that can be kept cold. So fruits, vegetables, you know, sandwiches, proteins, all of these things. And there are multiple groups and that help keep that stocked, right? So it'll be us. It might, you know, it might be Portage Park and Jefferson Park Mutual Aid. It might be the local Boy Scouts. It might just be a person who walks by and says, oh, there's no oranges in there. I'm going to go get some oranges and put them in the fridge. And it allows people to have a way to get these without having to ask for them or engage in a way that might make them feel less than. It gives them a dignified opportunity to go get access the resources they need without having to abide by the parameters that might be set by someone who's giving that gift. And I think just in that way, it's a resource that both helps people in need and gives them the dignity and respect that they deserve to just be able to help themselves and not have to report to anybody or explain to anybody why there's a need. There's a need. And I always go back to something like sometimes there's just the cost of doing business, right? Like when you're giving, when you're helping, there's people that will take advantage. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to be unhappy about feeding somebody. Yeah, that's not something I'm ever going to say like, no, you don't deserve that. Or, you know, you have the money to go buy there. It's feeding somebody. And I really think that we can all rally around that, you know, it doesn't matter what else is going on. People deserve to be fed. And this is a way for us to do that. Yep.
I love that. And remind us the location where this Love Fridge, this particular one will be.
It's not 100% exact yet, but it'll be somewhere near Higgins and Milwaukee. Ideally, you know, hopefully at the park or so. We have to like consider there's the construction for the North Side Cultural District that's going to happen. So we're trying to make sure we keep that in mind as we find this location. Also somewhere that's lit and safe and has access to power. But it'll be right in that general area. The final exact location hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll let people know when it is and how they can participate. Maggie, thank you so much for being with us today, for being such an engaged and active neighbor, and for talking to us about what it means to engage in our neighborhoods in ways that sometimes are complicated. As you said, sometimes we say yes to more things than maybe we even should. But that spirit is such a beautiful one, that what does it mean to keep saying yes in our neighborhood and to one another, and to meeting each other where we are. And I really am grateful for your time.
I'm grateful for you and everything you do too.
See you soon.
See ya. Thanks.